We try to start at 7, but the food's so good, we often have a hard time tearing ourselves away from it right at 7. So, but anyway, we definitely want to welcome Bill Mattingly tonight to speak on the water keepers. There's several people who are doing sampling in the Peace group. We're connected to it. Both Rachel and I are taking water samples. I'm sure he's got a good program for us to describe what that whole thing is about. And without further ado, let's let him start. Okay. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Molly. All right, hi, I'm Bill Mattingly, and I'm coordinator for what we call the Painted Post team for the Water Sentinels. It's actually much more than just Painted Post area. It's, Steuben County, all the way from Allegheny, Steuben, and I guess Chemung, Schuyler, a few others as well. So all in this area, all around Steuben. So let me say, first off, it's a real pleasure to get an invitation to talk to you tonight. And I want to give you a little bit of an update on the New York Water Sentinels program. And I've labeled it here, contaminated, clean, or somewhere in between. So that's the question I'll try to answer about our water. So, whoops, that's the pointer. Forward is there. Okay, so the agenda, I'll just start with a little bit of background on what the New York Water Sentinels are, and then go to some data that we've collected on the rivers and streams. There's a few Water Sentinel folks here on the Painted Post team, Wally, Joe, Gene, just to mention a few. And then I'm going to shamelessly plug you to have you come, if you can, to our workshop, be trained to become a Water Sentinels yourself, if you'd like. So let's go to some background data on the Water Sentinels. It's a Sierra Club sponsored organization. We were the first folks to be trained were the concerned citizens from Cattaraugus County. And then we sort of rolled it from west to east. Painted Post was next after that. Then there was the Broome Tioga folks that are around the Binghamton area. And then all the way east to Norwich. So those are the actual 4 teams. Were the Cattaraugus team, the Painted Post team, the Broome Tioga team, and the Norwich team. So we have volunteers from many different groups. It's not like a requirement that you have to belong to the Sierra Club or anything like that. In fact, most of the folks we have in the Sentinels aren't Sierra Club folks. So we have a lot of different groups there. And right now, the entire group is about 90 volunteers, and we're monitoring about 77 sites. So it's a pretty good start, but we could use a lot more. Okay, so by the way, if there's any questions, feel free to jump in and ask. This isn't meant to be some sort of formal lecture, so feel free to interrupt me at any time. So here's some of the groups that have volunteers just in the Painted Post team. I don't know the ones from the other groups quite as well, but I did write down some of the groups that are represented in our Painted Post team. Concerned Citizens of Cattaraugus County, of course the Sierra Club, Coalition to Protect New York, the Keuka Lake Watershed Action Committee, Federation of Fly Fishers. So as you can see, Green Party, we have a representative here. If we could add to that the Bath Peace and Justice, that would be great.
We should.
Okay, so this is sort of a goal, vision, mission that I put together. We sort of have 2 roles as I see it. We're there to monitor the streams, and we're particularly interested in detecting and alerting folks to contamination from hydrofracking. That's what our main goal is. We've been testing, we're getting set up basically and to protect the streams before the hydrofracking even gets here. If it never gets here, that's okay too, as far as I'm concerned. But if it does, we'll at least try to be as prepared as possible. And then we don't want to do this in a vacuum. We really do want to work with the local authorities, the Susquehanna River Basin Commission, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the local water and soil district folks, all those folks we're going to try and use as our allies, and so it pays to get a relationship with all these folks as much as we can. And of course the public, because they're the ones that can ultimately decide on where we go with this whole hydrofracking experiment. Okay, so the training is done by an organization called ALARM. That's Alliance for Aquatic Resource Monitoring. They're an organization that's out of Dickinson College in Pennsylvania. They've been actually doing this kind of training for a long time. They originally, I believe, started their training to work with farm runoff and that kind of stuff. But as the hydrofracking came to Pennsylvania and subsequently potentially into New York State, they've been working on that for many years now recently. It was a full-day training. We had ours back in June of 2011, so we're only about 6 months, seven, eight months old so far. So we're really just getting started here and trying to get a lot of folks on the ground, testing our streams, protecting them from any kind of hazard from the hydrofracking. So on with the full-day training, they spend a lot of time analyzing watershed maps to help you pick strategic sites that will work the best for the streams. Then at the end of the meeting, there's volunteers that pair up as much as we can, people that live close to another. The idea is to select a stream that's strategic from a water testing standpoint, but also it has to be close to your home. So you don't want to travel a half an hour to get to, that's too much to do if we want to have the Sentinels test every couple weeks at least. Some do more, some do less, but if we can get an average of about once a stream visit every 2 weeks, that's what we shoot for, and it's best then to be as close to home as possible with the streams. We do have some equipment that I'd like to show. Gene, if you want to get out our equipment. They do training on the equipment, and then they also train on how to calibrate the instruments, and then they also give us a bunch of numbers and the phone numbers of people that we should be talking to. As I said before, the Susquehanna River Basin. It's not just the Susquehanna, because we do have other river basins that, the Genesee, for instance, is in Cattaraugus County. That's a very important watershed that we need to protect as well. We do have people in there. The whole Cattaraugus group is probably mostly in that watershed. There's also some testing going on in the Delaware watershed. Although I believe that there's no hydrofracking allowed in the Delaware River Basin. Is that right? Mm-hmm. At least now. That, of course, may change. So it's good to get as much training and people on the ground as we can, because these regulations can change at any time. Okay, any questions so far? All right. The next training session is coming up this May 11th. It'll be in Wellsville, New York, which I believe is south of Elmira.
No, it's out. It's Allegheny County.
It's Allegheny
It
County?
would be west of Alfred.
Oh, okay.
And a little bit more south.
Okay, then maybe I don't remember correctly. But it is in Wellsville. It's at the Wellsville Public Library. Again, May 11th. The sign-ups, well, I can get to that later, but we can just keep that in the back of your mind, and I will get to that at the very end. Okay, so we do have a water tester. This is provided by the alarm folks, it's purchased by the Sierra Club, and we actually ask for a $25 donation. Of course, folks don't have, you know, if you don't have the money, you can still become a volunteer. But it does defray, you know, it's about $100 for all the stuff that they give, you know, and we sort of lose money, but we don't want to have, you know, if folks give a little bit of money, then they're a little bit more, we know they're a little more serious, I guess, you know, rather than just taking our stuff. Okay, so, this is the pocket tester. It's really just a connectivity tester, and we stick this part into the water and get the conductance. And I'll go through that in a little more detail in a few minutes. We have our calibration solution. All right, so onward to, so this is a map that the alarm folks give us. It's a map of the watersheds that are in the area. The one in green, it's a little bit hard to see. I'm sorry for the eye chart here. But the green is the Chemung watershed. Of course, this is the Cohocton River. I guess I should back up. So that's the Cohocton River right there, you know, flowing into Painted Post and Corning and such. And then onward, it's the Chemung there. They're actually calling it the Chemung watershed, so they're including the Cohocton in that. Then this purple watershed is the Tioga. Of course, it's really more the Canisteo River, and then which joins with the Tioga shortly before it goes into the Chemung. And then this area right down here is actually part of the Genesee. Okay, and this area is part of the Genesee. They call this watershed here Seneca watershed, although I'm like, Seneca watershed?
It drains into Seneca Lake, Cuca
Okay.
Lake, so it's Great Lakes.
They
yes.
are part of the same
Great
watershed.
Lakes, yeah.
All right. So, okay, whoops, I went the wrong way here. There we go. Okay, so even though that's called the Seneca watershed, it does drain into the Seneca area, even though it's around. I thought, oh, why wouldn't that be called the Cuca watershed? Okay, so so this is a map, and then we pick streams within the map in order to maximize our potential of finding any problems if they arise. These triangles here, one here and a couple here, are permitted wells. Now, they're not permitted anymore because of the moratorium, but they were permitted before the moratorium went into effect.
Could they be vertical wells? Because vertical wells aren't included.
No, they did notice that there's a whole lot of vertical wells in the area, and they culled them out, supposedly. So these were the few permits that were issued right before the moratorium went on effect. There's another watershed map that I kind of like, and that's the one from the Susquehanna River Basin Commission. So I should give them credit because they're the ones that put this together, I guess. So that's their little logo here. And this is the, and this also shows the extent of the different groups that we have in the Water Sentinels program. We actually have 3 of our 4 groups represented here. The purple, which is the top one, is the Norwich group. And so you can see that the Norwich group is right in this area here, what they call the Shenango River Basin, and a few in this area here. And I don't know what that one is. Aliout Creek?
That's part of Delaware over that way, New Jersey.
Well, there's some in the Delaware River Basin, but some of these are this Aliout Creek area.
East Branch, West Branch,
Yeah.
going to the Delaware.
Well, no, this goes into the Susquehanna. Okay, this is all Susquehanna River Basin stuff.
Okay.
Okay. The Painted Post group is here in sort of the deep blue. And so you can see we're all in the Canisteo, the Cohocton, a little bit on the Tioga, what they call the Chemung River here. You know, then it's Chemung where the Tioga River joins the Cohocton, and Chemung all the way down to, I guess, this part here, where the Susquehanna and the Chemung come together and then go south back into Pennsylvania. We also have the Broome-Tioga group, which is shown here in black. So you can see we got a bunch of, that's essentially around Binghamton area. Okay? So the Water Sentinels is represented in here, in this group, and in these groups here. And then what's not shown on this map is the Cattaraugus folks, which are out here in the Allegheny and Cattaraugus County area, which is more the Genesee watershed. That's not part of the Susquehanna. Okay, any questions so far? All right. Good, let's, what tests do we normally do? Well, we are monitoring mainly for hydrofracking contamination. That would be what's called produced water. They take water and sand and they push it down into the well along with the whatever 100 or so chemicals that are used for the biocide and making the water slick. It's slick water hydrofracking. They put some surfactants in it or something to make it slick so they can pump it down the well better. And so that water goes down into the well, fractures the rock, and then a portion of that, a fairly large portion, something like 30%, comes up and as in what's called produced water. And that is very, very high in salts and in materials like barium and strontium. And so we test mainly two types of tests. One is the conductivity test, which tests for the amount of salts in the water. The produced water, for instance, in the drill cuttings and such, are very salty. And for barium and strontium. And barium and strontium are signatures of hydrofracking and also of just general drilling. So we can use those as markers, essentially.
So you don't have tests for radium or anything?
That's correct. We do not test for any kind of radioactivity at this point, although we are looking at that. And I just have one bullet on that we're interested in that as well.
Thank
you. We do the test, the TDS test, that's total dissolved solids. That's what we use the meter for. Total dissolved solids are the salts. The salts make the water more conductive, and so we measure it using the using conductivity test.
If you have naturally hard water, you're going to have higher TDS.
That's right. The hard water has more dissolved solids in it, and it will be more conductive. So you can actually, I for instance have pretty hard water in my, I'm part of the Irwin Water District, I guess they call it, and so I get my water from the Irwin Water District, and it's fairly hard water. It would have a conductivity somewhere in the order of 1,000 microsiemens, which is fairly hard. That means somewhere around 700 milligrams per liter. Almost a gram of, 3/4 of a gram of dissolved solids in that liter of water. So you could see that much pretty easily. That's if you took that water and you dried it all the way down, you'd have, like 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, which would be about 3/4 of a gram. Okay, so we do TDS, total dissolved solids. We do a visual assessment to see if there's any sign, like foam on the river, that kind of stuff. We also do stream depth. That's needed because if it's raining, the TDS will normally go down. If it's not raining for a long time, the TDS naturally goes up, and we don't want to have false alarms. So we track both the stage, as we call it, stream depth, and total dissolved solids. And we keep a record of those to see when those things are out of sync. When the TDS is 3 times higher than what it should be, then that's when we start swinging the action thing and start taking some samples and looking for instance, barium and strontium. Barium strontium we take every 6 months, and it's an expensive test for us, and so we only do it once in a while, every 6 months. Or if the TDS says, hey, something's up here, we want to learn a little bit more. You know, is there a hydrofracking contamination incident going on? And we also do quality control checks every 6 months to make sure that the meter's working properly and the volunteers know what to do. It's an independent quality control, so the Water Sentinel would take a sample, they would take a reading themselves, they would give the sample to us, we'd get it tested independently, and those numbers have to match. Or else we have to find out why they're not matching and bring the volunteer back into compliance, so to speak. You know, it's not that serious, but...
Fix his meter.
Yeah, fix the meter, right.
Not fix the volunteer, fix the meter.
Okay. Any questions thus far? All right. So here's just an example of hydrofracking already in progress. This is underneath the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. As you can see, what you're seeing is every one of these little red squares is a well pad. Okay, here, this is the scale, 2 miles here. You might be able to just barely see. Here's all the little runways. You know, actually, they're not little. You know, this is Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. You know, so here's a 2-mile long runway, and then here's another one on the other side of the airport. They also have some legs going out in these directions too. But as you can see, they've basically hydrofracted underneath everywhere, and that's basically what the gas companies would like to do. This isn't a thing where there's a pocket here and a pocket there. The shale is everywhere where it is. So it's a blanket, thick sheet of rock, and so they're going to try and bust it up and get the gas out from everywhere in a blanket sort of manner. That's the most efficient way. So it's not as if there's going to be a well pad here or a well pad there. They're going to, you know, if this was done right, right meaning the way to get the most gas out and everything, it's going to look like this. There's going to be hydrofracking everywhere. There's going to be well pads that there will be one well pad for every half-mile by 2-mile parcel of land. So they have the well pad in the middle of that typically, and then on either side of it they'll be stretching for a mile these individual lines, which are the horizontal part of the. So they drill down and then they go horizontally. And for every one of these, you can see there's several. You know, they go down, and then there's somewhere on the order of 6 to 8 wells per well pad. And then there's about 5 million gallons of water needed to stimulate each well. 6 to 8 of them per pad. And then as you can see, just in this area here, many well pads. You know, we're thinking if we were to fully build out the New York State area where there is shale, we're talking thousands of new wells every single year for a long time. Okay, so it isn't a small undertaking. It's actually a pretty big business, industrial enterprise. And so along with these pads, there's going to be compressors and stuff which compress the gas, and you know, they'll diesel compressors. They'll be going basically 24/7. You'll have some diesel compressor, which makes a fair bit of noise. You know, so these things, it's basically industrializing the entire landscape, if you ask me. It's something that we can't take lightly. We've got to be very careful about this. Okay.
Does it have
So-
pipelines?
What's that? Well, that's not including all the pipelines and stuff that have to get to the well pads.
This is just the extraction.
Yeah, yeah, right. So there's
At
the compressors,
15,000
and then they have
pounds.
the pipes that are connecting all these together.
What do they do with
you know,
all
so
the water?
what's that?
What do they do with the wastewater from the Dallas Fort Worth?
Exactly.
Yeah, and the wastewater is another concern because things like barium and strontium and other things, we don't know exactly how to take those out. You know, they try to recycle stuff, and you know, so those are kind of open questions. I'm not an expert on hydrofracking, but I've learned enough to be pretty nervous about it as far as if these in Pennsylvania they're allowed to use lagoons, you know, and then if it rains and the lagoon overflows, it just makes a huge mess, you know, which has happened, you know, and then the wells themselves, you know, if you listen to Dr. Ingraffia, you know, 4% about their leak from day one, you know, and then as they age, more and more percentage of them leak, you know, so this isn't a hydrofracking discussion, but I just want to make a point that you know, it's a real threat to our water, so this is why we're wanting to be prepared for it. Okay, so here's some of the streams that we're looking at, and they should be familiar to you folks here to some extent. This is just the painted post, some of the painted post team streams. You know, Kankakee Dike, the Cohocton River, Canasteo River. The Irwin Hollow Creek runs right by Hake's landfill, which is outside of Painted Post. You know, Catherine Creek, for instance, which is a favorite fishing, trout fishing. If you read the papers, they're lined up like cordwood, the fishermen during opening day. You know, 5 Mile Creek, Newtown. Newtown Creek is east of Elmira. That's a spot that folks are very interested in hydrofracking that area if they get a chance. Harrisburg Hollow Creek is a bath, right? Is one of the creeks around in the Bath area. I think a tributary to the Cohocton. So these are just some of the creeks that we're dealing with here. Okay. This, again, it was supposed to be bigger so that you could see it, but it's, again, an eye chart. But this is the database that's been developed for the New York Water Sentinels. It's a web base, so we log in on our computer. We have our login credentials. We get into the database, and we can enter our data by ourselves. Every Water Sentinel volunteer can test their stream and then enter their data. And it is secure in that we can only edit the information that we put in. So we can't edit somebody else's data, for instance. If you see right here, there's a little X, and then there's a little pencil. That's actually a little pencil right there. I'm sorry it's so small. But you can see that it says Bill Mattingly, Gene Stolfi. It's the Painted Post. This says TGA01. That's the stream code for the Tioga River at Mulholland Bridge. That's where we do our testing, Gene and I. And so we put in the data. You don't see any data here, but this is the site that we go to, and it says we can this data, which is actually on another page. The data itself is on another page, but it says we can edit that record, essentially. Or delete it. That's the X. We click the X, we can delete that record.
Just because it's specific to that site, do you take it above the water withdrawal place or below it or both?
I'm not sure exactly where they're. I don't think they withdraw from the river. They withdraw from a well or something. Do you know if what their Irwin?
The Irwin Railroad siding has fire hydrants coming from all of the Irwin wells, and it's the end of the line to where they're filling those tanker cars. So it could be any one of the wells.
Is it city water?
Irwin Town Water
Okay,
And
so
it's their fire hydrants is also their drinking water.
Yeah,
And
so
they,
it's
they even
Irwin
have a
town water, I
well
guess.
alongside the Cohocton, down next to the Corning well, and they have them scattered in the valley. So basically,
Yeah, so they're not
They're
taking
filling
directly
with
from the
Irwin
river, I
town
don't
water.
believe.
they're not taking it from the river, they're taking town water.
Okay, I just saw on the, well, never mind, I'll talk to you about it later.
Okay.
They
Well, that's a
also-
good
they
question,
also-
because
they
we're
also
very
take it out
concerned
of the
about
river.
that, and that's
Yeah.
right next to,
They
where we're
take it out of
taking
the river,
our
Reader's Way. They
stream
take it
data.
out of the river down at, the Black Gold landfill.
Okay,
topsoil.
So
They're
let's
drawing
see
river
here.
water also. They're using a lot of water. Take it all over the place.
so here's an example of some of the data that we've been able to collect, with the help of some folks here in this room. That's not, data that I collected. Well, some of it maybe, but, most of it is not. I'm just reporting on it. But this is the TDS, which we report in parts per million, which is the same as milligrams per liter. And you can see on the x-axis, there's the stream codes, CCK 66, for one, EMC01, that's EE, 5 Mile Creek. Here's EHC, which is Irwin Hollow Creek. And you can see what the TDS level is. This one up here is a special one. That's the COH04. That's the Bath water treatment plant. Rachel Teichler.
Below the
Rachel.
treatment plant, right?
No, right in it, right in the effluent,
Right in the effluent, yeah.
yeah.
So you can see that's kind of off the chart as far as the, it's not off the chart, but
And
it's
above-
much higher
and
than
above
all
it
the
it's
rest
clean,
as
yeah.
far as the amount of salts and stuff. So the Bath water treatment plant is putting in a fair bit of dissolved solids into the Cohocton River. That's typical for, I don't know if it is typical, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's not just typical for most water treatment plants. TDS, as I said before, it's dissolved minerals, salts, chlorides, carbonates, sulfides, bromides, that kind of stuff. And you can see here that rainwater is about 10 ppm. So, and then surface water is about 200. As you can see, that would be about here on this. Seawater, 35,000. So there's a big difference between surface water and seawater. And then our friend here, hydrofracking water, that would be the produced water that comes up from the well after they've stimulated the well and broken up the rock. A certain proportion of the water comes up, and that's on the order of about 5 times more salts than even seawater. So if that gets into a stream, hopefully we can detect it. Of course, it is being diluted and all that, so we have our work cut out for us. But you can see some streams are pretty low. Fresh streams that haven't spent a lot of time on, dissolving solids in them, dissolving salts from the ground, and others can be pretty high. Let's see, where is Catherine Creek in this? Anybody know?
First one,
CCK 66?
I'm guessing.
Oh, no, I forget.
CTH 03 maybe.
And
Catherine?
NTC is Newtown.
Yeah, CTH
That's
might be
pretty
Catherine.
high. And these bars here show the sort of high and low. So, this is the highest reading here, and this is the lowest reading here, and this green spot is the average.
Is that Canacadea, the CND in Allegheny?
Yes, that's the Canacadea Creek, these two. And you can see that there's a pretty big difference between the, somewhere almost 700 down to about 100. So it can range
I think
about
Catherine is
six times, rather.
CTH 03, and it starts at the industrial complex in Horsehands.
yeah.
It rains back. That's why it's so high.
CTH, maybe that's it.
CTH 03.
Yeah, so it can be
That's
up,
why it's up over
there.
400 because it's.
My, hard water from Irwin, from the Irwin Water District is about 700 or so. That's your well water. You know, so some of these creeks are as hard as well water, which is kind of surprising, being that it's surface water.
And the Newtown.
Mary, you got a
Yeah,
question?
just the Newtown Creek, that's really close to the Lauman landfill.
Is it?
I don't know.
The Chemung County landfill.
It is.
I think so. Newtown is very close
It's
to
a little
Lauman,
bit
so.
disconcerting that it would have
NPC,
that
it's a
much
high number.
total dissolved solids. Okay, so so that gives you sort of the lay of the land as far as the TDS is concerned. And then I'll give a snapshot of just a couple of streams in a little bit more detail. And that's, here's Newtown Creek. Now the x-axis is over time. So this x-axis here, you can see June, July, August, September, October, all that. And so we have two different readings here. The TDS, which is the red line, and stage, which means depth of the stream, how much water is flowing in it, is the blue line. The blue line goes against this axis over here, the blue axis, and then the TDS goes against this red axis over here. Now, we were told that normally the streams, when the rains come, the water gets softer, and so the more flow you have, typically the less the TDS. But as usual, the story isn't quite that simple, you know. But we can see that when the stream spikes up, usually the TDS spikes down. Here, the height of the stream went down, and then the thing spikes up. You know, and here we have another spike up in the stage or the depth, and then we get a corresponding spike down. You know, so it seems to work. Although the general trend, you know, for instance, from September, is that both the stage and the TDS are going down. So it's not that quite that simple a relationship. And so we'd like to collect an entire year's worth of data in order to be able to see whether anything's out of sync, at least a year's worth of
Maybe when the
data.
ground is frozen, you don't get as much penetration with the
Exactly.
tanks.
Meaning, so there's those kinds
A lot
of
of
effects.
information, a lot of way you can analyze the information.
Does
So-
agricultural runoff affect that as well?
Yes.
Certainly.
Yes,
If
and
they're
there's
fertilizing the
less agricultural.
fields, or if they're putting down stuff, that'll increase TDS. That can. And then there's the road salt, which can also increase the TDS. So there's a lot of sources for TDS, fewer for barium and strontium. So here's the west branch of Kanikadea Creek. I thought this was kind of an interesting one. You know, you can generally see that for, you know, between August and December, so that's about 6 months worth of stuff there. I don't know, 4 months, maybe 5 months. You can see that the TDS is going down as the stage goes up. That's what's supposed to happen. You know, as more water is flowing through the stream, the hardness of the water is going down. It's more soft water. But, you know, at this low point here now, it seems like the TDS is going up by quite a bit. You know, it's a low of about 100. It gets up to around 600, so it's going up by a factor of 6 almost, you know, maybe 5, 6. But the stage is just sort of bopping around here in the 1 foot level, you know. So they're not 100% correlated, and that's really, you know, we need at least 1 year of baseline data before we can really say, you know, hey, something's wrong here. So. And we're pretty close to collecting that year's worth of data here. We've got maybe about 8, 9 months already into it with the Painted Post team. The Cattaraugus team has getting close to a year's worth now. Okay, any questions so far? All right. Here's just a quick couple of data points on what I call the vulnerable sites. Irwin Hollow Creek goes right next to the Hakes landfill, you know, so we're interested in that. And of course, we're interested in the Bath Water Treatment Plant, because that does flow into the Cohocton River. And the Bath Water Treatment Plant accepts water from the processing plant at the Bath landfill that processes Pennsylvania's
Semi-solids.
Pennsylvania's fracking solids. So as I understand it, the Hakes landfill accepts hydrofracking waste in this, for instance, drill cuttings and maybe produced water that is been partially solidified. And so the leachate from that, meaning stuff that the liquid collects in these pools, they take that liquid from the Hakes landfill and they put it into this processing plant at the Bath landfill. And at the Bath landfill, then they separate the solids from the liquid, and then the liquid goes to the Cohocton wastewater treatment plant. So if it is conceivable that these materials are getting all the way back into the Cohocton River through the Bath water treatment plant. And so that's what we're concerned about, I guess I should say.
That's where the barium and strontium is to tell.
That's right. So, and as you can see here, the Bath wastewater outflow has a fairly high TDS, which I don't know if that's very surprising. It's probably not surprising. But the TDS near the Hakes landfill, Irwin Hollow Creek, seems to be fairly low. As you can see, it's basically under 200. The stream's pretty clean. So no problems there from what we can see so far, even with fairly large fluctuations in the stage. So, in fact, we had a big, I think this was the snow melt that we tested, and the water's pretty clean there. Or as far as we can tell with our simplistic tests. We don't do an exhaustive, and we don't do nitrates, and there's a lot of tests we could do. But the Water Sentinels program is more, like I said, oriented toward hydrofracking contamination detection rather than things like farm runoff and that kind of stuff. Okay, so here's some barium strontium results. Again, we're focused, this is focused on the Bath water treatment plant just upstream and just downstream. So you can see that the barium and strontium, again, this is in milligrams per liter. As you can see, it's fractions of a milligram. It's not like the hardness. The TDS is, tenths of milligrams. This is in hundredths of milligrams. So barium and strontium upstream, you can see that .029 goes to .049 just downstream of the water treatment plant. So just upstream, just downstream, there's not much in between there except for the Bath water outflow, which we subsequently tested, and it's fairly high, as you can see, 0.112. I shouldn't say fairly high, higher than the Cohocton River itself.
5 times higher.
I'd say 4 times higher, 0.3 to almost .12. And the strontium is the same way, 0.3, 0.4 versus 25. That's maybe 6 times higher than the upstream. And so the downstream definitely does increase its strontium load. And strontium can be there is a radioactive strontium-90. So, there is those kinds of things. But we're not testing for radioactivity at the moment. But we are looking into, what is required for doing that, because that is a concern of us. And then there's Nichols Run. Nichols Run is a stream south of the St. Bonaventure, Salamanca area. Where is St. Bonaventure? Olean. Yeah, Olean in Cattaraugus. And you can see the barium here. Barium and strontium have both increased. In fact, it says in this stream in July of this year, it was as high as the Bath water outflow. So, what's going on there? We're not sure.
They're fracking out there.
What's that?
They're fracking out there.
Well, I don't think we can come to that conclusion just yet, but, you know, 'cause I don't know where this Nichols Run, it is in the Genesee, and it is, you know, generally running from Pennsylvania into New York State. That's Nichols Run, or the river, from what I can see in Google, is running that way. But I don't know for sure exactly what's going on there, but as you can see, things are higher than the typical numbers are right here. 029, 036, that's what we see for pretty much all the streams